I've been working on my horror game a lot this past year, but I've realized there's one critical issue. It doesn't feel alive enough. It doesn't feel like there are any real souls haunting the halls of my game's location. My game is called PNG Mall, and there should be super creepy monsters lurking through the halls of a forgotten mall. But right now, yeah.
Garry, you want some?
Horror game. So what are we gonna do? Hear me out. I want to create super cursed monsters. I want them to behave in ways that not even I can predict. So what if I increase the chances as much as possible for some supernatural spirit to latch itself onto my code, and therefore I should have the most cursed, unpredictable monsters of any video game ever made. Maybe. Alright, so this is night 1 of 3. My goal is to make one monster each night at 3 AM, and we're just gonna see what happens. Hopefully, we can get something spooky to happen. Okay, so we're gonna start easy with this first monster. We'll start off with a wander state, where the monster will pick a random location and move to it. If it sees the player, however, it will enter the hunting state, first making a little spooky sound to scare the player. Alright guys, so I actually just realized something. If we want to increase the chances of something actually like infecting the code, like an actual spirit getting into my PC, I think we need to remove this side panel. So let me just do that real quick. Alright, so it should just pop off here. There we go. Alright guys, so welcome under my desk. I just took the side panel off my PC. We want to make sure that there is a clear entrance into the memory for all of the spirits to wreak some havoc, get some anomalies in there. So I'm just going to leave this off now, and we're going to see if that makes any difference. Anyway, so after entering the hunting state, it'll proceed to chase the player until they either hide in a safe room or the player is hidden from their view for long enough. If the player successfully hides, the monster will enter the search state, where it will furiously search around until it either finds the player or gives up after enough time. So it's the next day now, and unfortunately I didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary last night. But hey, maybe something spooky still wandered into the code. All the code for the monster is written. I'll just go ahead and assign the monster's visual, rig it up, and make some audio for it before we test it. I'm going to use a visual that I made last year, and I'm theming his audio around large industrial machines, like massive elevators, steam engines, and hydraulics. For these reasons, I'm gonna name him the Boiler Man. So I did some fairly normal debugging, but I didn't notice any sort of super haunted anomalies during last night or during my debugging session. But this was about to change for night 2. Before I show you night 2 though, I want to show you some of the fun changes that I've made to the game since my last video. So before in my game, there were going to be these little NPC guys that would send you on fun little side missions, but I decided to murder them since they just felt a little too goofy. They're a little out of place. I started rolling some dice on my desk to prototype a new system that generates atriums, and yeah, the tall atriums aren't done yet, but the one-story ones look pretty good. I also did some pretty boring rendering optimizations using a technique called texture atlasing, where you basically take all the textures and you put them onto one big, kind of like a sprite sheet. I also wrote this really cool 3D portal cell system that only loads rooms that are visible through these rectangular areas called portals. This took a bit of research, but this technique was actually used in early games like Quake, and it works really well for indoor procedurally generated environments like my game. I also added a sound system where monsters can hear you when you make too much noise, which is kind of inspired by how Lethal Company's system works. Oh, and my favorite addition, I made it so certain props are pushable and throwable by both you and the monsters, which I really think elevates the fun of the game. Also, one trick I learned to enhance the appearance of lighting in the game is to add these non-shadow casting point lights to mimic the effect of global illumination, which is where light bounces off of surfaces and lights things up that aren't directly visible to the light. All in all, I'm very happy with these changes, but we still need to breathe life into the game with some new monsters. So let's get back into making the second night's monster. Alright, it's the start of night 2. We didn't really get any anomalies on night 1, which is a little disappointing. So I think we need to step up our game a little bit. I'm gonna set up a speaker right next to my PC and play some sounds that I'm hoping will really anger the spirits. And I think that'll draw them to the PC this time and we'll have better luck. Dude, those sounds are super creepy. But while those spirit angering sounds play, let's start work on our second of 3 monsters. This one is inspired by comments left on my last video by a couple users where they said I should make a monster that's invisible unless looked at in the stereoscope. I first started again with the wander state, where we'll pick a point and randomly roam around. After some time though, it will move to the approach state, where it will move to the player until it either sees the player or it gets close enough. Once this happens, it will enter the creep state and start to make a really creepy clicking noise. From the player's perspective, they just start hearing this really eerie clicking sound that slowly approaches them. If the monster gets close enough to the player, it will dash at them and start dissolving into view. The player can successfully save itself from this monster by either keeping their distance, finding a safe room, or flipping through the stereoscope channels until they can find it, at which point it will dash away. Alright guys, so I think I just heard something, so I'm getting my camera out to see if I can capture what I just heard. Yeah, we actually have cats, I forgot. I don't have a visual for this monster yet, and I honestly still have a lot of energy, so let's make this one's PNG tonight as well. Not being able to see the monster and the kind of weird clicking noises I want it to make remind me of some kind of strange deep ocean predators, so let's draw inspirations from weird ocean creatures. I scrolled through a bunch of images and found this guy, which I think is really perfect because he sets off my subconscious facial detector really strongly. With a little bit of time editing, I think I was really able to turn this into a pretty cursed face that I know is gonna scare me once he dashes at me. Good morning. It's the next day now and we need to test this monster out and see if it works. I made some sounds using the clicking from wind-up toys and a screech from a fox. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of the screech, but it'll work for now. I decided to keep this monster invisible while testing it, which led me to the idea of adding a scuba diver breathing sound, which I really like. There were a few major behavior anomalies for this monster, mostly deciding to try and rupture my eardrums with a ton of noise. This monster was fun to make, but the coolest monster is definitely the one I made on night 3. Alright everyone, it's the start of night 3. I've got my code pulled up, I have a new file started. And if you can't see, my tactic for tonight is to lure the ghost over with maybe some food that it likes. And when it's done snacking on a little snack, maybe it'll want to snack on some code. With the sandwich set up as bait, let's talk about the third and final monster for this video. One commenter from Colombia suggested that I make El Silbon, or the Whistler, which is a legend from the Los Llanos region of Colombia and Venezuela. I'll link a video below to the story of El Silbon, but in short, a boy killed his father and was cursed to carry his father's remains for all eternity. He still roams to this day, and he can be heard whistling. If you're outside and hear whistling that sounds nearby, it means that El Silbon is far away. If you hear faint, distant whistling, however, it means he's very close, and you may be his next victim. Oh my god, you guys are never gonna believe this, but the ghost just took a bite out of my sandwich. I'm really scared, guys. What if next time he takes a bite out of me? Whistling on its own isn't enough to make this monster's mechanic, so let's start programming. I want this monster to feel like it's stalking you, and I also don't want the player to get too close or get too good of a look at him. If the player looks at Silbon, he will freeze and start getting angry. Once the player looks away, he will continue to slowly creep up on them. If Silbon gets too close or the player stares too long, he will begin chasing the player and laughing. Of course, when he's wandering and stalking the player, he will occasionally whistle, making it sound like he's far away when he's actually nearby. It's the final day, and I'm gonna go ahead and make the visual for Silbon. Unfortunately, since I used a real man's face for this, I didn't end up recording a time lapse, but I'm pretty happy with the result. I really like how my monsters turned out, but I've got to be honest, I'm pretty disappointed. I was hoping that coding these monsters at 3 AM would cause some really cool and creepy glitches that would make this video more interesting, but nothing really crazy happened. If you're watching this and trying something new or improving some skill set, the mistakes that you make are gonna be pretty boring most of the time.
Oops, I accidentally made a paper Boeing 747-400.
The quality you achieve while trying to improve might often feel like really dull cardboard, but don't worry, that's completely normal. Eventually, you'll feel satisfied with the result and realize that there was no need to worry about the process at all. I have a free demo for this game out right now that has everything you saw in this video, link in the description. Check it out and please leave honest feedback so I can actually make this game into something really special. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.